Hey, my name is Leanne Vogel, and I'm the host of the Keto Diet Podcast. You're watching episode 297, where we're joined by guest Leah Harvey. She's a health coach dedicated to helping women feel good in and about their body. She's been on her own journey of health, fitness, and healing for nearly 10 years and has successfully reversed hypothyroidism, amenorrhea, and adrenal issues without medical intervention. This is huge. This fuels her passion for helping women take back their own health through food and lifestyle. She knows what it feels like to keep searching for the perfect diet, and having learned from costly mistakes, she brings context and understanding to both of the often controversial macros, carbs, and fats, and helps ladies break free from diet dogma and fear and instead learn their body's own individual needs. She coaches ladies to not only unlock their personal weight loss code, but also regain their energy and truly thrive. Outside of that, she can be found cooking, working out with her hubby, walking, hiking, or singing at the top of her lungs. You can find Leah by going to Livelyco, that's livelico.com, and checking her out there. I will include links down below. And thank you to our two sponsors today, Belcampo. I mentioned them in today's interview saying, oh my gosh, my B12, my vitamin D, my iron have all increased since I switched over to cleaner meat. And yes, it is more expensive. However, I have not been able to get my vitamin D up to ample levels ever. I've done shots, I've done supplements, everything. Nothing was working. And also with my iron, my doctor was like, I don't know what's going on. We've tried everything, and switching over to a cleaner meat source did it. I'm so excited about this. I just got the results this morning and really pumped to go through all the results with the doctor and come up with a future plan because meat is working. So you can find more details about Belcampo below, in addition to a coupon code that I will put in there for you. And also Eaton Hemp. Big thanks for Eaton Hemp for sponsoring today's show. They make amazing CBD products, from tinctures to salves to lotions and everything in between. Also, they have hemp products, including hemp hearts, which are deliciously awesome. A perfect balance of fats, proteins, and zero net carbs. So I will include some details in there. So today, Leah and I are really chatting about her experience. Her experience healing her body is quite similar to mine. And so we really go through hypothyroidism and how to drop the pride when we're on an eating style that's not working for us, experience on birth control, amenorrhea after birth control, how she healed her body through all that, the function of our adrenals and how they affect it, stress, cycles, healing, quality, carnivore, all the things that she did to kind of get to the place that she's at now, having had a cycle for a year with no hypothyroid symptoms. So really exciting stuff. So without further ado, let's cut over to this interview. Hi, Leah. How are you?
Hi, Leanne. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm so good. And I'm so glad to have you on the show. To just chat about your experience. You've experienced a lot over the last couple of years.
That's true. It's true. I certainly have. And thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yeah. So I'd love to just maybe start at the beginning. Like, I read out your bio, and perhaps a couple of women that heard that were like, whoa, this human is so inspiring. But can we just kind of start at the beginning, kind of doing a rough overview of what kind of got you to the place of hypothyroidism, amenorrhea, and what that was like for you?
Right. Yes. So I would say my health and fitness and wellness journey kind of started when I was actually in my teens, because I was always a little bit on the heavier side. Like, I was always bigger than my friends. And I thought, okay, I need to figure this out. And so started trying to work out and figure out what to eat. And of course, back then, it was still very much the mantra of low calorie and low fat. So I bought into that for a really long time. And in my late teens and early 20s, I was still really trying to follow a low fat approach to my diet. And I was also exercising more and more all the time, because this is what diet culture tells you, right? Eat less exercise more. And there's been a lot, as you well know, there's been a lot in the last couple decades of fear mongering around dietary fats. And so I unfortunately, I was like, oh, well, I guess I won't eat them then. And so, eating low fat, exercising a lot. And then a third piece of the puzzle that went into that at that time was that my dermatologist placed me on the birth control pill for my complexion. And so that was kind of the trifecta for me that started the hormone journey for me particularly. And I think the signaling really just broke down my body, and I really began to struggle. And so that's when I started to develop signs and symptoms of hypothyroidism, started having really bad adrenal issues, energy issues. I also I contracted mono really bad for a long time, and it took me a long time to heal from that. And so I just felt broken. Like I felt like there's something wrong with my body. It was not doing what I wanted it to do. And, despite continuing to eat as low calorie as possible and low fat and work out even more, I started going in the opposite direction. My weight started creeping up. I started feeling worse and worse. And so that was kind of the beginning of my journey. And I started diving into the research a lot more to figure out, okay, what is out there and what is real and what are people saying? And so that is what propelled me into the nutrition space. It was like, I want to know this for myself. And I want to know more about nutrition and how to couple it with fitness and how to actually get results. So I started to research more and educate myself on these things, and slowly over time set up a base of information that has just grown and helped me get to where I am today.
That's amazing. That I have so many questions for you in between all of the things. Can you chat a little bit about what hypothyroidism felt like for you? Because a lot of women struggle with this and they don't really know. And they go to their doctors, the whole song and dance. You go to your doctor and your doctor says your thyroid is fine, but you're still dealing with these symptoms. Did you have that same experience, or what was that piece like for you?
Yeah, that was a progression. It was a progression of symptoms that I started to have. I had a lot of the very common ones, really, really cold all the time, very cold. I had weight gain that started to happen, and I was losing strength in the gym, and just really feeling a lot of brain fog. Oh man, so much brain fog. I felt like I just could not think straight. And I knew that something was off, but I kind of lived with it for a while. And when I saw a practitioner for it, they ran one test and they agreed with me that it wasn't ideal, and immediately put me on a synthetic thyroid medication, which ended up doing nothing. I felt zero better, nothing changed. And when the prescription ran out, I stopped taking it. I didn't refill the prescription, and I didn't go back and see that practitioner because I knew that it wasn't serving me. And so I began to research a lot more about hypothyroidism and how to support yourself through that, as far as lifestyle, what you should, how you should exercise, how you should eat, and some supplements as well that can really support your body's natural process. And so with that, over the next year to 2 years, I completely reversed my hypothyroid symptoms, just completely naturally without medical intervention. So I was really, really thankful for that, really excited about that. And I do, targeted nutrition to make sure I'm supporting my thyroid health. But what I realized for me was it wasn't necessarily that my thyroid was bad or that something was broken. It was that my whole body, my whole system needed supported better. So it was in conjunction with healing my hormones, healing my metabolism, and my thyroid corrected itself.
That's amazing. And I'm so happy for you. I know that I don't have a thyroid that responds with nutrition. Like, of course, it's well supported. You know, if I was eating a standard American diet, my thyroid would be a lot worse. But I tried the no medication game, and no matter what I did, it would get better. But oh, years of eating disorder and amenorrhea and all the things just completely annihilated my thyroid. And so I think it's beautiful that there are bodies that can recuperate. Whereas I know with vitamin D, B12, iron, I was trying a bunch of supplements. I was trying to figure it out. And then I switched to way, way better meat, like a high quality meat, so expensive, but started working. And I actually just got my labs back this morning, and I'm looking through it and I'm like, whoa, this was 3 months. And I shifted what I was eating specifically with the quality, and I saw a big, big, big difference. And I've been trying to make this change with supplements and dietary stuff, but not going all the way. So I think, you know, that's a really great example from a different viewpoint. You know, it's not just the thyroid, it's like all things, and different things respond differently for different people.
Yeah, exactly. And I was not against taking medication for it. I wanted to feel better. And I had researched enough about thyroid and a lot of the natural thyroid medications. I was like, you know what, if I have to be on this to feel my best, that's totally fine. I will. But when the practitioner that I had in my life was not willing to, in fact, I remember specifically asking if there was a non-synthetic natural thyroid medication, and they told me, no, there really isn't anything out there. And that's just quite false, honestly. But I thought, okay, I don't have anybody else to go to right now, so I'm just going to try this. And I totally agree with you, because I did the same thing in terms of food quality. I started prioritizing grass-fed meat to avoid, you know, hormone complication with what's in it. And so I really started paying attention to the quality of my meat, certain foods, not everything organic, but many things organic, to avoid consuming pesticides and things like that, because all of those things will affect our hormonal cascade. And as we know, our thyroid is our master gland, master hormone. So yeah, so I agree with you 100% on the food quality being of huge importance for healing.
So important. And you mentioned lifestyle support with a thyroid. Can we kind of go through what that looked like for you?
Yeah. So I ended up having to scale back my workouts quite a bit, just because there was a lot of stress on my body. And as we know, concepts of hormesis, hormetic stress, little doses of stress are great, but when your body is under a lot of stress, just trying to heal and repair, the added stress of working out can sometimes work against you. And it definitely did in my case. So I had to scale back a lot, change the way that I was working out. Also had to increase the amount that I was sleeping. Sleep is very healing. And for me, there's a huge difference between getting just 1 more hour of sleep per night. And so that was a huge piece of the puzzle too. So just the way that I was moving my body, and the stresses that I was allowing into my life at the time. So a lot has evolved for me over, you know, the years in terms of how I'm living my life. And for me, and this is something that I chat with a lot of women about, is that stress is actually one of the biggest impactors of metabolism and hormones. And for me, I've discovered that my body is very, very sensitive to stress. And so even more than like how much I'm eating or how much I'm working out, if my body perceives stress, whether it's mental, emotional, physiological, even from good things, it can throw off that signaling between your brain and your body, and shut down communication. So that was a big piece for me.
Yes. And I notice my body is very, very, like yours, very sensitive to stress. Even if I get just a little bit overwhelmed, or if, you know, for example, if I go to bed at 11 o'clock instead of 10 o'clock, it makes a big, big difference for me. And, you know, if you're kind of at that place, you can start to kind of tap into what your body feels like. But were you testing your blood or urine, or what were you doing to kind of validate that you were on the right path?
I did get tests run. I did have blood tests done every so often, about twice a year, I think, for several years. Because what ended up happening was I kept trying to find a medical practitioner that could help me. And I went through 5 different doctors who I ended up getting labs run with. And I could see with each set of labs that things were getting better. And unfortunately, I just was not receiving the help that I needed from these practitioners. And so I only saw them, any of them like once or twice, but I did not feel heard in my appointments. I did not feel like they were really paying attention to what I was saying. And with the data, I thought to myself, there's good change happening. Like, I know that I'm on the right track as far as where my labs are looking, what I'm doing, and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and just, pursuing the foundation first. And I've always thought that, if I do need medical intervention, if I need to see a new doctor, and if I need to get on thyroid medication or something like that in the future, fine. But I'm going to cover all my bases first. I'm going to make sure I have a solid foundation, using food as medicine for my body to give it what it needs. Because what I've really discovered in my own life is that, our body was designed to run on nutrients. All the nutrients, like you mentioned, B vitamins and zinc and iron and just all of the things, those have essential roles to play in our body's function. And when those are depleted or deficient, our body literally just doesn't have tools in the tool belt to do its job. But when you flood your system with those nutrients, give it those things, it will do its job. And that is what I've seen in my own life, is that my poor body was so depleted that it just couldn't do its job, but it knows what to do. And I gave it the tools that it needed. And now it seems like it has figured out what it needed to do again. It remembered.
Yeah. Like, oh, right. Yes.
Right. This is what we do.
Right. And it requires a certain amount. I almost imagine, through my experience with amenorrhea and all the things, it's like my body was crying out for those nutrients, but I wasn't providing it with that. So it's almost like it knew what to do. I was not providing it with what it needed to do the thing that it knows what to do.
Exactly. And this is why the conversation about calories just is not enough, because I was eating calories, but it was what was in the calories was not supporting my body enough. And so, part of the end of, not the end, but the current stage of my story is also having been through a reverse diet process, to where not only am I eating healing foods, but I'm actually eating more than I ever have in my entire life. And my body is really thriving. And so, a lot of people, like myself, I was so caught up in the fear that if I ate more calories, I was just going to blow up and get really fat. And that eating less was the only way to stay trim. And that really couldn't be further from the truth. What you need to be healthy and to stay trim is a healthy metabolism. And so doing what you need to do to get a healthy metabolism is so worth it.
Yes, I'm so happy you mentioned reverse dieting. And for those that don't know what that is, can we just explain what you mean by that and what that looks like? Because people just heard you're eating a lot, but can we talk a little bit about reverse dieting?
Yes. Yeah. And it's a concept that still kind of blows my mind, but I had heard about it in the past, but had not really considered, whether I needed one or not. But I got to the place where I was eating about 1,400 calories. And side note, this was actually a number that was given to me by an actual doctor. Said, this is what you need to eat to lose weight and be healthy. And that was actually a little bit below my BMR, my basal metabolic rate, which is the minimum amount of calories I need to survive. And I followed the plan because that's what my doctor told me. And you can ask my husband, I cried every single night because we got in bed and I was starving. And I thought, I I'm just so sad. I feel horrible. I'm starving. I want to eat so bad. And I was trying to be really committed because I was trusting my doctor. And I was like, nope, I can't eat anymore. But I was starving, and it was the most miserable time of my life. And I started to gain weight. Actually, my weight started to creep up, and I thought, what is going on? Like, I literally cannot believe this. And I thought, am I supposed to eat less to make my weight go down again? Like, what is this? And I thought, okay, I can't do this. I can't. It doesn't matter what happens. I cannot live like this. And so I began to undertake the process of a reverse diet. I did my research. And I actually also worked with a coach in my own life. I needed someone who could be non-emotional and help guide me through. So I enlisted the help of someone who was further down the path than I. But the process is to very slowly and strategically increase your calories over time to increase your metabolism. And for me, eating at BMR was really dangerous, especially with my activity level and my hormones being, delicate, with having had amenorrhea in the past. And so I was afraid, really afraid of gaining weight. But I thought, you know what? This is my quality of life right now is so poor, like it's not worth it. So I just trusted the process and slowly increased my calories over weeks, months, about 6 months altogether. And oh my word, the transformation was unreal, because first of all, like I started feeling so much better. And in fact, my husband started commenting like, you are in such a great mood. You just seem so happy and so stable and so motivated. Like he'll come in. We both work from home right now. We both are primarily working from home. So he'll pop in my office and be like, wow, you're really focused right now. I'm going to leave you alone. And so he's just like, wow, you seem healthier than I've ever known you. And it's true. I do feel completely night and day different than I did before. And I went from 1,400 calories to about 2,300 calories per day. And I did have to start tracking, which is not something that I'm always a huge fan of. I don't think that people need to necessarily track macros, but for me, I had to know where I started. And my coach wanted me to hit some pretty specific fat and carb macros. And so I did have to keep track of what I was eating to make sure that I was actually eating enough and not still under eating. And this is where carbs really started to come back into the picture for me, because I had a long experiment and trial with the keto diet and had even branched into very strict carnivore, based on a lot of success stories and testimonials I had heard. But I discovered that my body responds very well to carbs. And so even with a lot of nerves, like, okay, here we go. What's going to happen if I suddenly start eating so many more carbs than I'm used to? But where I am today is so healthy and so thriving that I'm so glad that I was able to break free from that fear and from just trying to follow rules that I didn't know if they applied to me or not. So there's probably more we can unpack there with the keto and the carnivore, but that's just kind of the overview of the reverse diet for me in terms of calories and macros.
Yes. And I had a very similar experience, but I didn't know it was reverse dieting at the time. It was 2015 and there wasn't a lot of research on this or information. But I just decided I had had enough of counting all the calories and limiting everything. And I was like, I'm just going to eat. Whenever I'm hungry, I'm going to eat. If it's 3:00 in the morning, I'm going to get up and eat. And I'll never forget the first time I woke up, it was around 2:30 a.m. and I woke up hungry and I was like, I'm going to make waffles. And I walked downstairs and I made a huge plate of waffles and I sat there and, coming from amenorrhea, eating disorder stuff, it's like, oh, what am I doing? This is crazy. But I just kept saying, I'm nourishing my body. I'm nourishing my body.
Yep.
I'm nourishing my body.
Yes.
Because it's,
yeah.
the whole time you're limiting calories, you're saying, I'm losing weight, I'm doing well. And there are these tracks that you have in your mind. So I had to kind of reverse that.
Mhm.
And you're right. There was a period where I was actually going through my phone the other day and I found some pictures of during that time. Girl, I was pounding like 3 pounds of ground beef a day. Like, I was so hungry when I actually allowed myself to eat. It's amazing. Like you, like crying every night, sleeping all the time. I was so hungry. And
Yeah.
now I think, being on the other side of it, 5 years down the line, I find that yes, my metabolism is much faster, but I don't need to eat as much as I did when I was going through that whole process. Like, I'm sure I was around the 3,700 to 4,000 calorie ish
Mm.
range. And
Yeah.
now it depends on the day, like maybe 2,000 to 3,000, depending on what's going on and all the things.
Yep.
But this is so against what people hear. Um,
Exactly. Which is why it's what makes it scary. You think,
yes.
is this is this going to be a horrible choice for me if I just start eating to satiety and eating what my body feels like it needs? And it was terrifying for me, which is again why I really wanted to have a coach, because I knew that I was probably going to want to hop off the train if I saw my weight creeping up. And my weight did fluctuate a little bit, but not more than 5 pounds, honestly, which is kind of shocking. Increasing my calories so much. But the craziest thing is that right now I am actually leaner. I just shared recently a progress photo because I myself couldn't believe the transformation. My body has actually, I think because it's not under that stress of I don't have enough resources, I don't have enough fuel, my body has really relaxed. My appetite is stable. My cravings are very manageable. Like I almost never crave anything. Hunger is super stable. And my body has started to let go of a little bit of that fluff that was there. And I think that was just, from obviously hormones, but stress and anxiety over food. And so, yeah, it's just such a freeing thing to be able to eat to satiety, feel like my body is completely nourished. And, the cherry on top is that I am actually slimmer now, which just blows my mind.
Yeah. And I'm sure there was inflammation there too. That's what I've noticed through healing is
True.
that
Very
my
true.
face isn't as puffy and my gut especially isn't as puffy. And there was something that you mentioned, discovered that your body does well on carbs. I'd love to unpack that because somebody probably heard that and they're like, girl, you crazy.
Yes. And I would have said the same thing. I, so I'm going to back up a little bit and kind of continue my story here because I had heard about the keto diet years ago, and I was pretty obstinate about it. I was like, nope, it's a fad. I'm not going to get into that. But, once I started researching and educating myself and, received my certification for health coaching, I began to just, research and study the science behind it more. And I was introduced to you and your work and your podcast and many of the other greats in this space. I started learning from people like Mike Mutzel and Deanna and Danny and Mata Vega and just many others in the space that are bringing information and science behind keto. And it really made sense. Things really started clicking for me. And I thought, I really understand this. I understand the science, in terms of glucose and ketones and how things interact with our body and our metabolism. And so I was very intrigued, and I thought I'm going to experiment with this, kind of in the name of being a biohacker myself. I was like, I need to see what this is about. And so I actually started with your book and the Keto Diet book and the recipes and the meal plans, and learned so much. And I felt really great initially. And I think one of the most fun things was being able to enjoy fats for the first time. And whereas, in my past, fats were something that were scary and off limits. And so being able to enjoy, I remember the first time I ate a chicken thigh instead of chicken breast, and like the angels sang. I was so happy. It tasted so delicious. And I was like, I can have steak again, and chicken thighs and avocados. So it was really, really, really freeing for me. And my husband actually took one for the team and decided to do the experiment with me. And so what really was kind of intriguing to me at the time was that he dropped 10 pounds of body fat immediately, just like leaned out, and he felt really good too. And I did not lose any weight. I had some weight I wanted to lose, but I didn't. And I was like, oh, I feel good, but I'm not losing weight. So that's interesting. And I also was testing my ketones during this time and could barely produce ketones. I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I don't know why I'm not producing ketones, but I would have, barely any showing up, 0.2 on the keto meter. I forgot what it's called. But anyway, so I was trying to track and do this experiment right. So, but as I learned more, I'm so fascinated by the science of metabolism and hormones and all the things that go on in our body. So I was really intrigued and just couldn't get enough of reading and learning and researching. So, long story short, about a year passed and I was still basically in the same place that I was. At this time, I was trying to recover from amenorrhea. I was trying to recover my period regularly, and that wasn't happening. And so at this point, I feel like I started to develop kind of a fear of carbs and feel like, this must be my body is broken or something's wrong with me. And I just need to keto harder. So I just ketoed harder and harder and harder and harder. And I cut my carbs lower and lower. And then I discovered the carnivore approach. And I thought, wow, maybe this is the answer to all of my problems, because I love meat and I've always been able to eat a lot of meat and I feel really great eating meat. And I was like, maybe I have some unknown, sensitivity to some type of carbs or vegetables or whatever. And I thought, well, maybe this is what I need to do. So I embarked on a time of carnivore and I tried to make sure that I was eating enough. It was hard. I wasn't really tracking a lot. So like you, I just kind of tried to eat as much meat as possible. But I started feeling just kind of some low-grade anxiety all the time. And again, I was really committed to the science behind it. Because first of all, I heard so many great testimonials. I had heard so many people that had had great success, not only on keto, but also on carnivore. And, as I've already said, I fully believe in the bioavailability of the nutrients in animal products. And I think it's really essential that they're a part of our life. And I thought, well, maybe this is all that I need. And so I experimented with that, but my weight didn't budge. And actually it started to creep up even more. And so this is when I started to think, okay, well, maybe I need to lower my calories even further. This is actually at the point where I had a conversation with that doctor who said, this is how many calories. So I was trying to eat at BMR and basically meat only. And it just went from bad to worse. And like I said, I was crying every day because I was so hungry and miserable. And I was really torn because part of me wanted to love it. Part of me I wanted to be the next success story on carnivore. I really, really did. And I wanted this to be my magic healing, progress, my healing moment where everything just came into place. I was really inspired by many people. Like, for instance, Kelly Hogan is a beautiful, beautiful example of the healing on a carnivore diet. And I thought, well, maybe I'm the next one. But I couldn't ignore what was going on with my body anymore. And so that is when I started to change my macros and to increase my calories. And this, I just kind of did it blindly because I was kind of at the point where I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. Whatever it takes, I'm just going to do. And then, so I've been a longtime listener of your podcast, and I came across an episode on your show that absolutely blew my mind and changed my life forever. It was your episode with Dr. Angela Foster, who talked about genetics and the way that genetics play into the way your body responds to fats, saturated fats, and how responsive your body is going to be to a higher fat, lower carb diet. And I actually did happen to have my genetics tested, and I had my full, DNA code run, and I had a lot of information about myself. And I had been looking over the information already and just trying to put the pieces together. And as Dr. Angela Foster talked in this podcast about the different genetic SNPs that may or may not, predispose you to not thriving on a keto diet, not thriving with high fats, high saturated fats. I just wrote down everything, all of the SNPs that she said. I'm going to look in my report, and I'm going to double check what she's saying against what my report said. And sure enough, I actually had almost every single one of those SNPs that she mentioned. And it was like a revolutionary light bulb moment. I thought, maybe it's not my fault. Like maybe I'm not just ketoing wrong. Maybe there is something in my body that needs carbs or needs something different. So that empowered me, even though I was still scared, it empowered me to open up my world to carbs again a little bit. And as a part of my reverse diet, I started to incorporate more carbs and gradually increased to well over what is recommended on keto, and then well beyond that too. And so, like I said, I had a coach who was helping me shoot for a certain number of carbs and fats per day. And so that just determined the type of meals. So most of my meals included a good portion of healthy carbs as well as healthy fats. And for me, figuring out the right kind of carbs was really important too, because I did some experimentation and learned how my body responds to different types of carbohydrates. They're not all the same. And I didn't just go on a bender and have whatever carbs I felt like. I knew that I wanted to do this reverse diet and healing, continue my healing journey in a very, very strategic, nutritious way. So I still was prioritizing nutrients and carbs, whole food forms of carbs, essentially. So that was a huge light bulb moment for me. And, something that I really want to talk about, because I think a lot of ladies probably feel like something's wrong with them and they're just not doing it right. They're not ketoing hard enough, and they just need to do it harder, or different or better. And that they're somehow doing something wrong, or that something's wrong with them. Whereas it is just a matter of really figuring out what your body's unique individual needs are. We all have such a unique makeup, even in terms of genetics. And I don't think you necessarily have to have your genetics tested to start experimenting and to figure out like what works for you, what makes you feel the best, and what gets you the results that you want. Because sure, weight loss is a great result, but how's your health? How's your metabolism? How's your hormones? How's your mood? Does your spouse like being around you? And so how's your mental health and those kinds of things? So that is just, it really is incredible to be able to stop searching for the perfect diet and find the right foods for you that actually work for you, regardless of what this guru or that success story has said. What is right for you?
Yes, beautifully said. There were so many little nuggets of wisdom in there. Something I really liked is when you said I couldn't ignore what was happening with my body anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, can we put that on a t-shirt? I would wear that daily. And it sounded like there was this, and I had a very similar experience. It was like, there was this moment of, do I choose to just continue to be proud And do I choose pride over being
Right.
truly honest with myself? Like, I feel like if we just sat down for 5 minutes and just got silent and just asked yourself straight up, am I miserable? Like, is this working?
Mm-hmm.
Because there were
Mm-hmm.
multiple moments where over the course of, I don't know, I mean, it's hard to know when it exactly started, but there were multiple moments where I was like, oh, I really hate this. Like when I was training to be a triathlete, I actually didn't enjoy swimming or
Mm.
biking or running, but I kept doing it because it was the right
Yes.
thing to do, and it made me strong. And it was pride. It was all pride of just, look at me. I did this thing. Here's my race. I want to be the next, like you said, carnivore queen. And I want people to see
Yep.
my testimony and think that I'm the best, you know?
Yep.
And so it takes a layer of just what's more important to me. And I loved how you outlined that and how you shared that. And um, I guess one thing that I'm sure women were asking as you were sharing your story was, when you were on keto, did you do carb ups or did you do more just like hardcore classic keto? Did you incorporate carb ups at all or not at all?
So in the beginning, no. I thought, well, the only way for this to work is to really do it, quote unquote, right. So I did. So I was very strict for a while. And eventually I did start incorporating some carbs, carb ups. And sometimes it was more in the sense of, I just need a carb, like I can't do this anymore. And sometimes it was more intentional. And I became more aware of the science behind carbing up and, who might need that and when that becomes necessary. And so I thought, okay, well, I can do that occasionally. And I would, but mostly I was keeping a pretty tight keto.
Cool. So your life now and how it all feels and, adrenal dysfunction, amenorrhea, how long has it been since you've started cycling?
So it has been about a year now.
Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Yeah.
How does
Thank
it
you.
feel? Like, I'm sure there are women that are curious that have amenorrhea. Like, did your cycle start off pretty painful? Did it take some time to think things to level off, or what was that like for you?
Actually, they have been better than they've ever been in my entire life. Like my cycles are so great. Not a lot of pain. First day is kind of crampy or whatever. But, when I was, especially way back when I was on the birth control pill for my complexion, my periods were a lot worse then. So they've actually been really good. I've been so thankful. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know if they were going to be really painful and really difficult because, of hormone imbalance, but they have been really, really good. And it was kind of interesting because when they started coming back, I got one and I was completely blown away. I was like, what? And then about, I want to say 65 or 70 days later, I had another one. And then the next one was 50 days, and then 55, and then 45, and then 40, and then finally back to 30 days. But I did miss a couple in there because of stress. It's been interesting to me because even though throughout this journey, even though I'm eating more now than I ever have before, one thing that has really been evident is that my body, again, very sensitive to stress. So just stress alone, even with my nutrition right, even with everything tight and everything going well, feeling really great, if I allow stress to overtake my mind and my heart and my life, I miss a period. So that is a really important thing for me to pay attention to, even on top of nutrition and eating the right foods. So that has just been a really interesting experience for me and process.
Yes, I had a very similar experience. I remember it had been 8 years since I had gotten a period, and there
Oh,
was
wow.
blood in the toilet the first time, and I just started crying. Like I was so happy because I'd been working at this for 8 years. I mean, especially
That's
the
a
last couple
long
of years,
time.
it was a long time. And my experience was very similar to yours in that it took some time to regulate and stress Oh man, it is
Mm-hmm.
unreal. I can tell, I just know in a month when my cycle is going to be delayed because I was overwhelmed, stressed, anxious, anything can impact it. But I
Mm-hmm.
think because I had gone so long in between my last period and, 8 years is a long time. My first
Mm-hmm.
couple cycles, like for the first year, were horrible. Like,
Oh man.
to the point where I was like, did
Yeah.
I really want this back? I don't know.
Exactly.
But now 5 years, like it's been 5 years for me. Now it's like perfect. Like I couldn't ask for anything more. So even in, I guess my point to bringing this up is that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so you've got your cycle back. That's great. And now let's try to regulate it and
Yep.
understand that this is like the first piece and it's an ongoing process. And that's not to overwhelm those listening or watching from making these adjustments.
Right.
But it's just that the journey never ends.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah. And my amenorrhea was about 3.5 years. So it was a good amount of time, not as long as I can imagine 8 years. That would be really stressful, really hard on your body, I'm sure. Um, and I actually had my hormone levels tested through Dutch at the time, and I was straight up postmenopausal ranges. Like you see the reference range for how your hormone's supposed to fluctuate throughout the month. They give you this cute little chart, and my levels were just straight across the bottom, nothing. And so I was like, well, that validates a lot of how I'm feeling. But yeah, so when I actually lost my period was when I stopped taking birth control. I stopped taking it at one point, and then my cycle disappeared and never came back for 3.5 years. So I knew that was playing a factor, which is just why I decided that for me personally, I needed to get off of it and work toward healing and balance. So that goes back to the beginning of the story and all the factors that I had playing into my hormone imbalance.
Yeah, I'm happy that you mentioned birth control. That's how mine started too. I had been on it also for my complexion. I was actually put on birth control probably, I think it was 2 or 3 months after my first cycle. So I got my cycle and then the doctor put me on birth control. And so I only had 2 to 3, I think it was like two, yeah, it must have been 2 or 3 months. And he's like, here you go, get on
Mm-hmm.
this. It'll make your skin better. In addition to
Yep.
taking like 3 rounds of Accutane. And
Yep.
so,
Same.
yeah, you know the drill.
Exact same.
Oh, yeah. And I think it's great that you got off birth control and that you are working to heal your body. And there was something that you said something that spoke to me deeply as it regards to my faith. And that was, you said, maybe this is the answer to all of my problems. And it's something that speaks to me very heavily because I was always seeking for something outside of myself to fix myself. And it happened to be, we're on a nutrition podcast talking about nutrition, and we're all kind of just seeking for things to make us happy and joyful and feel solid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
would love to know whether or not your faith played a role in your experience throughout all of this.
It really has. It has, because one of the things that a history of low fat, low calorie dieting will do is damage your relationship with food. And I have struggled with that. And thankfully it's been a long time. I've healed from that, but I remember so well struggling with, relationship with food, whereas food was, it was either a love or a hate, and it was on or off. And so for me, throughout this whole healing journey, from beginning to end, being able to trust, first of all, that my worth is not found in my body. My value is not in how I look or even in how I feel. I have intrinsic value that Jesus gave me. And so even as I work to heal my body, and even through the seasons where I felt broken and I felt like I wasn't good enough or smart enough and I couldn't figure this out, sometimes it was all I could do to remind myself that that is not who I really am. And so I had to learn to remind myself that, that's not where my value is. And that's not why people love me. That's not why Jesus loves me. And so I also had to trust him. And it's something that I prayed a lot about was for him to lead me into the right path for me, to be able to find what worked for me, because I really wanted to have peace with food, just in terms of not thinking about it all the time. It distracted me for so long because I was just constantly worried about, okay, well, this isn't working. What do I need to do next? That didn't work. What do I need to do next? And just like you said, seeking and seeking and seeking for the thing that was finally going to work for me, or finally going to be the right thing for me. And so I wanted to be free from that and be able to focus on my relationship with God and other things in my life that mattered more. And so to be in a place where I'm not obsessing over food or worrying about where my next meal is going to come from, and all of that is so freeing mentally, to create space, for growth and, to pursue things that matter in my life, as well as my faith and relationship with God, and with my husband too. I mean, it was something that affected our marriage because he just watched me being so concerned and feeling broken and struggling through all of this and wondering, what was wrong with me. And, he was right there with me through all this. We've been married for almost 7 years. And, so it has, it's really been a blessing for him too, for me to have achieved balance and to have found a place where, I'm just so much more free.
Beautiful. And when you were talking about your husband, the deterioration of one's wife is hard. And I know that my husband, Kevin, saw that as well. Like, you're deteriorating, and for men that want to just make their women happy and just like, what can I do? I just like, literally tell me what to do and I will make it better.
Yes.
It must be so frustrating. And I know it was so frustrating for Kevin, of like, just literally like, I will do anything to make this pain go away. It's so great that you had that support. And I too am very blessed in that area also, of having somebody to like hug me and hold me and tell me it's going to be okay. Because it really does. It goes a really long way. So thank you so much for sharing that. And where can people find more from you? Where can they interact with you? I know that you have so much left in your story, and I'm sure you're going to uncover more and more things. Where can people follow you on Instagram and all the things?
Yeah, thank you. You can connect with me on Instagram at its.leahharvey. That is my Instagram page. I'm pretty active there, sharing my journey and what I'm doing and how it works for me, as well as women that I work with. You can find me on Facebook too, Leah Harvey. I also have a page called Lively Co. I have a website called livelyco.com, and lively is a word and the name that I chose for my business, because the definition of lively is full of life and vital energy. And that really speaks to me and is what my mission is all about, because as women, our energy, our physical energy is vital to our lives. We can't, just like I experienced, could not be a good wife, a good friend, and fulfill my calling when I was totally drained of energy and struggling every day. And so my mission is to help ladies regain their energy that's vital to life. So yeah, so livelyco.com and Facebook and Instagram, and love to connect and share more of my story.
Brilliant. I will post all those links in the show notes. So if you're watching this, it'll be on YouTube below. And if you're listening to this, it'll be in the show notes of your app, and I'll explain later how to access that. Leah, thank you so much for coming on today. This is just a blast to hear more about your story. I know you reached out to me probably over a month ago, and I was like, girl, you need to come on the show and just share all of this. It's so great. So thank you so much. It was so great getting to know you more deeply, and just thanks for sharing vulnerably as it relates to just your experience with your body and health and everything. I really appreciate you sharing.
Well, thank you. It's been such an honor to chat with you, and so thankful to have learned from you and to be able to share my story. So thank you for having me today. It was really fun.
I hope you really, really enjoyed today's show. I know that I really did. It's always so amazing to chat with just really inspiring human beings that are empowering themselves to shift and move and shake with what their body is telling them. So if you have questions about today's show or you want to learn more, you can go to healthfulpursuit.com/contact. It'll be right up there. You can contact me there. Send me a message. I'd love to hear from you if you have ideas for the show, questions about what you just heard. I'd love to answer. So you can just go up there and send me a message. And if you're like, I want to start a ketogenic diet and all this sounds really good and I want to heal my body and all the things, you can head on over to healthfulpursuit.com/free, where you can learn how to start a ketogenic diet. And if hormones are more your thing and you're like, oh, I really need help with this hormone thing, if you go to ketoforwomen.com, I put together a 21-page guide on how to support your hormones. First and foremost, before anything else, hormones are king. And I hope you step away from today's episode truly understanding that and being inspired to take adjustments into your own hands and empower yourself to make adjustments. So I will see you in a couple of days for another episode of the Keto Diet Podcast. If you don't already follow me on YouTube, you can do that right there and click the little bell and you will get notified every time there's a new episode. So I will see you soon and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Bye.